Kyle, a YouTube friend, asks a great question. What is your opinion and/or what does Christianity say about people of different faiths dating? And there are probably two places in the Bible that people would go to in order to argue one way or another. Against dating somebody from a different faith, you might find Ezra. And Ezra is interesting because it tells the story of the people coming back from the Babylonian exile and seeing that those who had stayed in the land had married foreign wives. And Ezra comes back and he sees that this has happened, and Ezra is appalled. The text says that twice. Ezra is appalled, and he's like tearing out his beard, and he's tearing off his garments, and he's kneeling before God and apologizing for the people. And then he says, well, we have to get rid of the foreign element in our midst. So the people unite against the foreign women and their children. Poor kids. And they kick them out. Now, that's how Ezra ends. And interestingly enough, Nehemiah picks up the story right away. And the reason that Ezra wants to kick out the foreign element in their midst is because they're unclean and they're going to cause problems for the community. Nehemiah picks up and he instantly says that there are political problems. There's political intrigue. People are arguing about how to rebuild the city. So kicking out the foreign element doesn't actually solve the problem. There are still problems within our midst. This is classic scapegoating, the other. So if you want to unite, find unity, the quickest way that you do that is to blame someone else. And this is what happens to the foreign women and their children. They unite against them, kick them out, and this is supposed to make it so that we are now clean, because the unclean element is gone. And so now we're all supposed to be hunky-dory and everybody's going to get along, but that's not what happens. We still have these conflicts. So that story, while some may say that it's about not marrying foreign women of other faith, not dating people of other faith, that's not really what it's about. I think it's about the trap of scapegoating. What is other? Now, here's a great story, contemporary story, Ruth and Boaz. Ruth is a foreigner who ends up marrying Boaz. And there is some kinky stuff happening between people of different faiths in that story. And they have this great relationship. In fact, the Gospel of Matthew tells us that Ruth is one of Jesus' ancestors. Without Ruth, there may be no Jesus. And this is where I think we get a good answer to the question. God meets us in what is other than us. Ultimately, in the person of Jesus, God, the other, comes into our midst and loves us as human, as other. So I think that a great way to show that God is working in our world to love what is other is for people of different faiths to actually date and love one another as other. Now, of course, there can be problems with this. There's a mother at my church, for example, who has a son, and the mother is Christian and the father is Jewish. And the mother wants me to tell the son why he should be Christian and not Jewish. And the mother tells me that the dad wants the child to be Jewish because Jesus is not the Messiah, according to the Jews. This conflict stems not so much because they are different faiths, but because they have the same desire for their child to be like them, not for their child to be like who is other. But if God meets us where we are at in love, loving us as if we are other, then we will want what's best for the other. So the Bible doesn't have a clear answer on this question, and in my opinion, relationships are hard. They're hard no matter what. Faith of same faith, faith of no faith, faith of a different faith, there are always going to be conflicts in our relationships. The question is, how are we going to deal with those conflicts? I think what was best, if you have the same mindset that God or the ultimate reality of the universe, whatever you want to call it, meets us in the spirit of love where we are at, as something that is other and loves our otherness. And I think that in relationships, if we follow that God, things will work out. Things are going to be okay. So those are my thoughts, and I would love to hear what you think. Thanks.